Hi, good morning, Jay. Good morning, everyone. Thank you for tuning in. And of course, today we have another topic that I picked for you over the weekend. And I thought, especially with seeing how some of you have sent us various messages. Me personally, I've received a few messages, and I've also seen what you've been writing, as we all are seeing. Um, Especially when the prime minister is addressing you. And um, I thought this topic would be something maybe we have to have this topic. So let's get into it. We're going to talk about, the border situation. And of course, throughout the week, we will be, having different conversations with different people. We understand how this is very traumatic right now. This is trying times, challenging times, but it's also very traumatic for the St. Maarten psyche from where I stand. So, really and truly, let's start by acknowledging one fact. Let me move my devices here. The St. Maarten DNA has a few components in it. And of course, when you think DNA, I mean, it's basically the genetic code that determines and characterizes a living thing. It gives you, everything about you. Basically, it's the thing that makes you you. You get it from your parents. It's passed down, um, you know, from one generation to the next. It's basically hereditary material, but it's basically what will make you you. And in the St. Maarten DNA, we find elements like oneness, culture, family, and of course, economic and social interdependence. Now, I must say that I acknowledge one thing. Although we've been used to natural disasters, nothing seems to be able to prepare us and Martiner to accept the idea of separation of this beloved island. And of course, it is emotionally and psychologically impossible to comprehend. A lot of people, they will understand a decision, the reason why this may have been necessary, but accepting that we actually have to touch it. And the St. Martin um, tradition, we don't relate to it to the idea of us not being able to interact. It's literally psychologically impossible for us. We are not having it. We're not interested in having the conversation. So it's going to be something that is forced upon people. It's going to be implemented, like in this case with the coronavirus. This is a measure, and the prime minister has explained, but she has said that it is to mitigate the spread. And at the time, there were more cases on one side versus the next, and she felt like there was a lot of people that were leaving the Dutch side to go to the French side, and was this could be it was taking a risk, and so people understood what she intended to do. However, as time went by, the difficulty started to be real and present. People, you live on the Dutch side, but you have to go to the lab on the French side. Now, I want to remind, and of course, for sake of balance and clarity, that you can do this. This is allowed. But when we were in total shutdown, that was not. You had to have an appointment, etc., etc. So people interpreted that they couldn't go to the French side at all. But as things got, relaxed, and even during the whole shutdown, you just had to basically apply for a waiver, which was given to you, especially if you were going to have your medical appointments as usual. Now, within the scope of medical appointments that were um, quote unquote already, ongoing, they also said, like, if it wasn't an emergency and you could do it without going to that appointment, it would be best, because you want to limit movement of people. But if it was, I mean, obviously, if you're pregnant and you're being followed, especially if you are high risk, you have a high risk pregnancy, then you cannot exactly miss your appointment. And of course, they were giving out the waivers. But it's still established in the people's mind that something was actually happening, and the border being closed was one of the problems and one of the things that people still had to awaken to that reality. Nonetheless, um, the way I see it is that we've we've had, you know, a physical symbolic border that is now actually a palpable physical European border. Let me rephrase that. It was physical and symbolic. Physical in the sense that you're going from one side to the next, you'll see welcome to St. Maarten and welcome to St. Maarten. But and you had your monument, etc., that symbolized that you were changing side. But at no point was there, uh, law enforcement trying to ask you, let me see your ID, why are you coming in here, etc., etc. Like, it is something that we're not used to. Although, again, I want to remind you that this is a temporary decision in order to mitigate the spread of the coronavirus. So this is not something that is meant to be permanent. As a matter of fact, what you need to remember is that the France, the country, um, has done the same thing, but they originally had the Schengen space, and the Schengen space is totally shut down. All Schengen borders are shut down to each other, although it's meant to never be shut, but there it was shut. Okay. Um, so it is what it is. Authorities are making decisions, and not all of them are going to end up popular or not, or unpopular. Some of them are going to be popular, some of them are not going to be popular. But it's not going to change the fact that people relate to the idea that the the border being shut down was to a certain extent necessary, and people understand the reason why the decision was taken. But it's still not changing or shifting the trauma that people now are facing with regards to the border being shut down. So let's start with a few facts to be remembered. St. Martin is linked to two sovereign nations, France on the one hand, and the Netherlands on the other hand. Okay, let me maybe proactive here, and let me see. I need to pull up. Okay, this one. So I want to show you my screen. There you go. So here we are. Let's talk about what is a sovereign nation. Okay. So according to Wikipedia, I'm sorry, I don't like to use that when I'm doing this, but I'm going to use it now because I thought it was pretty thorough. So a sovereign state in international law is a political entity that is represented by one centralized government that has sovereignty over a geographic area. International law defines sovereign states as having a permanent population and defined territory, one government, and the capacity to enter into relations with other sovereign states. It is also normally understood that a sovereign state is neither dependent on nor subjected to any other power or state. So basically, this is a term that um, we use a lot in the French civic education process, because whenever you have national elections, especially the presidential election, candidates will be like, yes, la France doit regagner, retrouver sa souveraineté, etc. Because of course there are political movements that do not believe that France has any sovereignty anymore, especially within the construct of the European Union. Certain political minds, certain political movements, certain political activists, they feel as though um, France is subordinate to this other ultimate entity, which is the EU, and that is stripping all sense of sovereignty of the French. Now, it's an argument. You can look it up if you'd like. Um, as a matter of fact, there is a candidate that always talks about the Frexit as opposed to the Brexit. So the Brits got out. So now, next, the French need to consider getting out of the EU. Unfortunately, for now, every time there is a new president, um, the Brexit is not a conversation because they're all talking about getting a stronger Europe, a more efficient Europe, 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 Europe. Okay, so after we've tackled this part, oh, I am so unable to tell how long. I didn't look at the time because I don't want this to be too long. But nonetheless, that is what a sovereign state is. So you have two of those. So it's literally two distinct countries. Although I always joke and say, they're cousins, les couronnes d'Europe, c'est tous des cousins. But the point is, authorities are faced with making harsh decisions, and some of it doesn't sit well with the St. Maarten psyche. I mean, we are governing a people that has had ties for centuries now, even before 1648, which is the date that the settlers decided to separate the island into two, and to also commit to living peacefully with each other and not fight and not engage in any type of coups to overthrow the other and occupy the other side. As we speak, there are families that grocery shop on the Dutch side in order to make delivery food packages and deliveries at the border so that their families can actually have access to groceries. The scene is, to a certain extent, spectacular, but it's also very heartbreaking. But it is the St. Maarten reality right now. I want to share something else with you that I had up. I want you um, to get a sense of how this all unfolds. Okay, this is, so let me move me. This is France right here. Okay, this is the Netherlands. Okay, as you can see, it's this big country here, and it's bordering Luxembourg, Belgium, Germany. Okay, this is Germany here. All of this here is Germany, Switzerland, Italy, and Spain. Okay, and of course, we are, now, of course, this is going to take a while. So there we go. Now we're going to go down, and we are over here. Okay, so, oh, I have to. All right, this is us. This is us. And this is the side that is French, the Northern, and this is the side that is Dutch. And this is the border. All right, the separation. Okay, so right now, and even, we've had a few traumas with regards to closing the border and the way we do it, you know. There are areas where we, for instance, the lowlands area, you have Dutch and French lowlands, and the French and Dutch lowlands is not, they put containers there. And the containers, symbolically, it's traumatic for us because when we had Hurricane Irma, it was also a problem. Containers were dropped at specific water, and it made it, people were like, we weren't having it. But right now, with this whole COVID thing, knowing that even with closing the border, just the fact that I, as a family member, would have to grocery shop and take it to the border, and either side, sometimes the French side, they purchase things and they drop it at the border for their families and vice versa. So, really and truly, this is our reality with regards to COVID and what we're experiencing right now. Um, I don't know how you feel about it, but for sure, this is something that is now going down in the St. Maarten history as one of the traumatic experiences. There is the COVID with losing, well, now we are about 12 deaths because we have 10 for the Dutch side, 2 on the French side. And some of you have even contacted me and told me about, but it's confusing. Why am I writing it's 101 positive cases? I'm like, well, my job is not to do government's job. I don't work um, for government, French side or Dutch side. I am looking at positive cases. When we look at the international news, you don't go telling the world that, okay, this is the amount of people that tested positive. They tell you how many people tested positive, and then they tell you how many deaths they've had. They don't always focus on how many recovered, how many days. So those are the details. If you want to go look for those, that's fine on you. And if government want to focus on them, they can have their campaigns to put it out there. But the reality is that 101 people tested positive. Now, whether or not some of them this passed on, some of them recovered, some of them did whatever, it doesn't matter because the ratio is not calculated on who is still active and who's not. The ratio is calculated on, okay, this is your population and this is how many people that were affected with this virus or that were positively, that were tested positive in the process. So you cannot, on the one hand, say, we're one people, especially for this pandemic where it's about people moving from left to right and not practicing social distancing, and that putting them at risk of getting or being exposed to the virus. I'm sorry, because in the end, like I said, we're interdependent. We do move from one side to the next casually for all sorts of reasons, whether it's for banking services, whether it is for medical reasons, whether it is for shopping reasons, and I even say socially because we all still traumatized about not having carnival. Well, this ain't nothing new. We're traumatized. So it's one trauma after the next. Of course, I'm giving it a humorous twist, but um, we can wait for carnival. Truly, we can all have a whole jam session when it's all done. It's no problem. We can sacrifice. It's not a problem. But I'm just saying that we do not see a we see Dutch Carnival, but when you see the masses and how many people attend from both sides of the island, you understand that, hey, it's interchangeable. We go over there, they come over here. So voila. So I want this to be a reflection to the authorities as to um, acknowledging that this too is going down in history as a traumatic experience for the St. Maarten people. Thank you for tuning in. Jay, back to you.